Do you think UFOs, the paranormal, weird history, cryptozoology, and outsider art are pretty darn cool? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to High Strangeness with your host, Steve Berg.
The video version. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of High Strangeness. That was a new one. I really kind of mixed my tones there. Well, folks, today I am super excited because I have on my buddy Bex Atwood, and I'm going to read you a little short bio about Bex just so you can get to know Bex. Bex Atwood is a haunted film photographer and spooky explorer from southern Indiana. She has spent the majority of her life exploring and documenting the back roads of the Midwest and beyond. However, travel was not always required for her to experience the paranormal. You may recognize her from her work in Liminal Earth, UFO Met. My gosh, I can never say that right. UFO Met. Euphomet. My God, I am so dumb. I had Jim Perry on my show too. It was like you think I'd know it? Euphomet, Night Drift. I love Night Drift, and or Woofo. I love Woofo. I love all of those things. Bex, welcome to the show, friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve.
Oh well, we've been talking for like 20 minutes. First off, I discovered that Bex lived in Los Angeles for a little bit back in the day and had a wonderful experience. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, highs and lows.
Yeah, that's LA.
Right, but a lot of it, I mean, I still, like, we were talking about, like, food influence in particular, and I remember
Yeah.
the first time I went to a taco truck and was mind blown that I can get 10 tacos for $10
Yeah.
and saw the Al Pastor spit, and I was just like, oh.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And they had the little, they had the, oh, what do you call it? The pineapple on top where they just like,
Yes.
with a machete, quickly whip off a little piece of the pineapple.
Flames shooting out of the side of a truck.
It is. Well, the showmanship is wonderful. And we were just discussing a little known fact about LA, if you haven't lived there, is the best food. LA is, in my opinion, the best food city in America. And the thing that's great about it is the working class food, the cheap stuff is where the great food is.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Well, Koreatown, I mean, whew.
Yeah.
Like, I was joking, that was like my food awakening because I had just moved. I was 19 and I had just moved from southern Indiana. And so,
Right.
I had been to like an Indian restaurant and I had the American Mexican spot in town.
Right.
And so it was my awakening. And then having to commute through Koreatown to get to my workplace on Melrose. I just ate there so many times for $5 or less. It was miraculous and amazing. And I never expected to be hit with so much flavor and like passion and it would be in the most unsuspecting of places. So
yeah. Well, what a great time to go to LA when you're like 19. Because I feel like if you tried to move there, like, I mean, I'm from the Midwest too. So I was going to school in Lawrence, Kansas. So I went from Lawrence, Kansas, which is a tiny little college town, to LA. And the juxtaposition was startling. I was scared for like the first 6 months. But I think it is kind of one of those things where you don't have to, but it helps to have some youth on your side when you go to LA.
I'd see that. And it was an interesting way to like date and meet people. I just wish, we had touched on, I just wish more of those relationships would have lasted, but everyone's just grinding and it's so hard to nail anyone down for anything.
Yep.
But in passing, I had a lot of really great encounters with really unique people and they were just brushing shoulders with the most unexpected. And you just, have a lot of firsts and a lot of just like, wow, I wish.
Right.
I wish I could post this somehow or describe this feeling to my friends back home. A lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It was one of those places I remember, like, growing up and like being in college, whatever. I was always kind of the weird guy in my friend group, or just kind of an oddball as an artsy person, artsy kid, whatever. Like, and I remember when I moved to LA, I'm like, I'm going to be this like eccentric weirdo. And then basically I move into my neighborhood and I'm like an algebra teacher. I'm like the most like normal, like, I'm like, wow, I have been out weirded in one day by everyone.
That's it. And it's wild because I worked at this thrift store on Melrose called Wasteland. And then when I had first moved, I had been transferred from where I was working in Louisville, and it was school photography for like preschool and kindergarten. So I
Awesome.
traveled all over Los Angeles my first 3 months or so there, photographing small children. It was wild.
Yeah, I bet.
And I was pursuing a fashion degree, and I was like, I'm gonna be like this editorial photographer, and I'm gonna be designing, and it's gonna be like so edgy and
Yeah.
amazing. And I saw like 5 of me's in a day that probably had the better designs. I was like, oh boy, this is a lot. This is a lot.
It's a humbling city, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, I basically thought I'd be on SNL like in 6 months, and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is so talented. Oh no, I'm not special at all.
Oh gosh, that's it's so wild. What an experience.
No, it's a great city, and I still go back there like a lot because for work and whatnot. But like it's a great experience. I think it's a great place. I would recommend anyone with some youthful desire to go there. Do it. Try it
You
out.
gotta have the youthful desire, and you can't be afraid to get a little bogged down by commercialism. There's billboards. That was something that someone warned me right as I was leaving. They had lived in Chicago, had been to LA a bunch, and they were like, okay, but listen, I think you're more of an Albuquerque kind of girl if you're going to LA. So get ready for the billboards, get ready for everyone's business cards, and I was like, okay.
It's true. Well, it's weird as I get older. I'm like, I live in Omaha now, and it's it's a city. It's like over 1 million people, and now Omaha feels way too big for me. And I'm like, man, my next move is going to be rural. I can feel I'm like my desire is to be pulled out of cities. I think more and more it could also be a reflection of society and how scary it is.
Yes.
I gotta get away from everybody.
I felt the same way. I moved back, and I was like, am I going to live in Louisville again? Or am I going to have an apartment in the city? Or am I, going to go back to rural Indiana? And yeah, the rural Indiana is doing it for me. I just can't. I don't know. I have like a big dog and stuff too now. So the apartment life is just getting more and more unalluring. Is that a thing?
It just became one, if not.
It's very dull, and I'll go there for like my partner shows and the food and things of the sort. And I love the city. Also a very good food city. It's like up and coming. It's very good.
I love Louisville.
Yeah, and I mean we have like a crazy hardcore scene. Knocked Loose is from is from our area. They're from like the next county over, but it's like a 15-minute drive. So they're Louisville.
Well, on the other end of the hardcore thing, I'm a huge, massive fan of Bonnie Prince Billy, Will Oldham, and he's one of the luminaries of Louisville. So their very own little weirdo mystic. I think he's a lot of talent comes out of there. A lot of talent. And speaking of talent, Bex, I was singing your praise before we started. You are one talented human being. Your photography is so very much, to use a John Teddy term for me, it's haunting, it's mysterious, it's mostly black and white, and there's this real, I think if you're from the Midwest, you get extra appreciation of it, but there's this real, and like, correct me if I'm wrong in describing it, but like this Midwestern Gothic vibe, and does that make sense? And like, a question I have for you, like, what came first, your interest in art or your interest in the strange and unusual?
Oh.
and I guess, and my second part of the question, does one influence the other?
Now, yes. I think for the longest time I struggled finding that connection, and I think that my time with Liminal Earth kind of made that connection for me. But we can speak on that relationship in a moment. But it's so interesting because I'm digging through so much stuff from when I was in school now that I'm back home, and I found like the first like artistic photograph I ever took, and it was like of a sunset over a pond.
Yeah.
And it was with like a silver little digital point and shoot, and it was the first digital point and shoot my mom had bought, and it came on this little mounted printer. And so within a day I would just be like cranking out photo prints and just like doing the thing and working on like the first gen of filters and things of the sort. And so I found that. I don't have it on hand. But photography was kind of always a thing. And when I got into high school, I started interning with a studio about 45 minutes north of here. And I worked for them all through high school. And our specialty was like event photography. We had like a killer Halloween booth setup we would do in town. And then we did like underwater stuff. And we worked with a fashion designer in Indianapolis. And so it was quite like the eclectic thing. Like we'd be like doing zombie pictures one day, and then we would like go and shoot like this wild fashion show. And it was a really fun way to grow up, but it definitely was also like that weird kid. Like, I don't think a lot of people wanted to talk about, like, what did you do this weekend? Oh, what didn't I do?
Yeah, I was photographing roadkill. What were you doing?
I had to run from the fashion show to get to like the crusty hardcore bar, and I had to like climb the fence because I was 17. Just like, what did you get into?
Yes.
I say that with all the humility now because LA did squash that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the paranormal stuff started really young for me. And if I think about it hard enough and, having been in this field now for a couple years, having the radio show and things, I've been able to kind of reflect for a while on these questions and like the early days. And I had like a good old fashioned haunting in my childhood home.
Really?
And my mom, it's wild. Like a lot of the women on both sides of my family are just like super into it. And they just have all had experiences. And so they're just like, as soon as you open up about that first experience and you're like, I don't know what this is, it's just like floodgates. And so that first experience, before we had bought our farm in Bedford, we lived in Mitchell, Indiana, on 6th Street, I believe, but that's the same town as Whisper's estate. And so I would literally like trick or treat at Whisper's estate when I was like 6 years old. And there's a lot of really spooky stuff there that I'd love to also bring up later. But yeah, in the home, my mom was renovating it. It had like that like brown shag carpeting. It had really wild paint on the walls. The cabinets were just, like from the 70s. So my mom was redoing everything. It was her first home. And she had the wildest activity, just that like very signature upset ghost who doesn't want anything to change. And we had that really musty, soggy, gross dirt basement. But we are in Tornado Valley. So we went in there all the time.
Yeah.
And I had just made up this like mythology about like this one random school desk that was just in the corner and like these canned vegetables and things from like the 60s, and this house had been built in I think 1912. And so it just had a lot of history, stone foundation, dirt floor. I dream about it all the time. It's like a weird meeting point. I don't know what the reference name is.
That's interesting. I dream about my childhood home too.
Really?
Mostly about my childhood home that I haven't lived in for 30 years, but that's very interesting. I also want to just say one thing. I'm going to let you, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to say renovating a home like your mom was doing, isn't that kind of like one of the hallmarks of like people saying like when you're like putting an addition on or moving earth around and making these changes, that's kind of that liminal time where it can, make the activity kind of spike a little bit.
For sure. It's one of those things that you would see on like sightings, right? And
Totally.
I don't want to like we're gonna do a humble brag for just a second. Please. But I got to interview Scott Schaefer, and he worked on some of the earlier episodes of that show, and he did the Maury Island incident documentary. So when I was in Seattle, I think it was like 21 when I got to interview him, and I have that. It's like a private unlisted link that I'll send you. But
please.
Yeah, I just like have sightings was one of those like huge things for me, especially being in the Midwest and kind of getting like shoved off to like the elders of the family and like just watching all the weird shit they would be watching and just being like, all right, this is summer break. And then to like meet that guy later, that was a really wild part of like my spooky journey.
So neat.
But knowing that like one of their like hallmark cases of renovation hauntings is something I experienced as a kid and then later watched the show about it, and it's just full circle, a lot of full circle moments with these
right
paranormal experiences.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail what you were saying. So you're in the basement. There's vegetables from the 1960s.
Yeah, and we had to go down there a lot for tornado warnings and things, and so we had just spent a lot of time down there, and it was so strange. I had like a bag of like all my favorite possessions that I would just permanently keep down there because I was so scared.
I would do the same thing. I would take a pillowcase and put my Star Wars toys in there.
I just was so scared because it was so real for us in our area. Like I know people who've lost everything, and so it was a very real fear. But then I grew up with like a helicopter mom who was just very aware of all of the society's problems and very hyper and very vigilant. And so yeah, I knew of all the fears and I was also afraid. And so I said,
Yeah.
hey, like my Polly Pockets, my like fishing video game for like on
Yeah.
Windows 98.
Gotta have that.
I was like, this I just wish I would have done some sort of like time capsule or something because I don't know how I'd react to see some of that old stuff that was in my
It would be
tornado.
fun. Yeah, it would be amazing. It would be amazing.
Right. But all of that to say, like I started seeing like an older woman down there, and I don't know if it was while I was dreaming or while I was awake, and that's
Right.
kind of the theme of a lot of my paranormal experiences and like the work that I did with WUFO, especially just getting into that dream state, that in
Yeah.
between state, and just seeing things and not knowing if they're real or not. And so my mom started to describe her and be like, she's really upset with me because I'm like destroying her kitchen right now, but I mean it's hideous, I don't know what to tell you. And so I don't have that ability to communicate or anything, but I just felt like this like this in between, like this middle person for this like weird renovation argument and two
Right.
women in my family. I'm like, okay, guys, this is very silly.
Yeah.
But it makes sense though, especially if it's something. It sounds like just from how my mom would describe her that it was a more intelligent haunting. But if you believe in residual hauntings, I could totally understand any of like that status quo being stripped. Obviously, will cause a disturbance. That's just kind of like that. The basis of that, right? That
Right.
theory is just residual, always in like the same place. So anytime there's change, it's disruptive for
Right.
everybody.
Yeah.
Or my
Yeah.
cat's like, I'm gonna eat my food right this
Yeah,
moment.
exactly. Right here. No. Good, Ken. Get that lunch. Get that lunch. Well, it is weird. I mean, like, I think we kind of find ourselves as a society or as a country, like in the middle of like extreme flux and change. Not great as I see it, I'll be honest.
No,
I'm
no, and
not
if
for this kind of change, but
right, and if you are lucky to have none of these changes affect you negatively, I think that is such a high ass point of privilege, and it's like,
yeah.
I
I don't
don't
know
know.
how anyone's. I mean, like, I mean, I guess like if you're a sociopath, maybe.
I mean, that's pretty much it. And like, what I will say, like, without getting heavy,
Yeah.
I like part of the reason I left Washington was very negative and it was very
Mm.
unsafe and it was very sudden. And it's something that I still like can't really speak on. I just can't emotionally.
Yeah.
But someone that was in my life and that caused that distress is has very similar ideologies to what you're starting to see break through today.
Uh-huh.
And it was very scary, and
Yeah.
it's very much like, oh, someone who caused me a lot of harm and someone I see as a genuine threat to society is now in charge of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that was like a hard mental hoop for me to kind of get over, and
I hear
that's
you.
something that I've been like removing myself from social media a lot and just trying to figure out how to move forward, because initially it was such a blow and it's
Yeah.
just like, oh my god. And it's hard to kind of separate
Yeah.
those individuals and
You're
those
not
ideologies.
you're not alone there. You're not alone there. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that,
Yeah.
but I mean, oof. But it's definitely got me thinking a lot about like my like hyper locale in my community, and knowing that there's a lot of good people in this tiny little town.
Yeah.
And so when I started my garden business, Dirt and Design, it's work that I've been doing for years, but it's been for other entities, other
Mm-hmm.
nurseries, other companies. And so this is the first time I'm going out on my own. And one of the big things that I want to do is garden coaching. And so it's to teach individuals how to start
I
and like
love
working
this.
with them through the process. And it's something that I've been wanting to do, and I've been pitching to like old employers, and they would either like just scoff at me and be like, that's such a small job, like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
make any money off of it, so profit focused.
Right.
I don't align with that. They would use like really dangerous chemicals and not make anyone aware that it could be harming the water supply, it could be harming their neighbors' pets,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff. So there's like willful ignorance and like damage. And so I've picked up all these little nuggets, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go out on my own and I'm gonna do all those projects that they turned down or they scoffed at, and these people just genuinely want education involved in their like landscaping process.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be doing a lot of like the heavy landscaping. I don't have a crew. I don't have, $500,000 in equipment.
Right.
But so many people that we turned down were people who had like a very restrictive budget, wanted to use like reclaimed materials, and just want the knowledge passed down. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to figure out some sort of pay scale where it's fair to both parties, but it's not something, I mean, like these landscape companies and their quotes are just outrageous out here. And so I'm trying to like fit in that crack, but serve the community and basically get to a point where you really don't have to go to the store outside of like pantry staples and things of the sort, and it can evolve and get to that point where I know a lot of people around here who do like the sourdough baking and do they've like mill their own flour and stuff. I mean, we have a super historical mill, ironically called Bex Mill, spelt different, but Bex Mill is one of the only mills that remains in my county, and they mill, and you can get super hyper local whiskey at Spring Mill in Mitchell. And there's a lot of like hyper local products. There's someone in Starlight who makes cheese and things, and so I'm trying to figure out, and I'm very inspired by like Aaron French in The Lost Kitchen, and like just creating this hub of like hyper local products that kind of just benefits the people who buy them. It benefits the people who produce them, and just trying to find this like space where we can all come together and just not depend on stores and things.
I'm telling you what, I swear to God, I believe this is the future. And I think COVID was the first glimpse into this. At least it was for me, because I remember I had friends who were like, quite honestly, just jackasses. And then the next thing you know, they're like starting these gardens in their yards and their side of their apartments on their little deck. And I'm like, this is beautiful. I think it was, this time where it's like we realized like, hey, the people who are supposed to be there for us and the safety nets, those are disappearing before our very eyes today. And I think community has never been more important. And I love the idea of spending money within your community and it stays in the community. So if you buy a cheese from, Lisa then takes the money she made from her cheese and buys local whiskey, and then they get coaching. I mean, like, to me, I think this is the future. I'm already noticing like young people, like kind of Gen Z or kids in their 20s, have like been moving to small towns outside of Omaha, and kind of almost like, I don't want to say what do you call it? They're not necessarily gentrifying these small towns, but they're moving to these communities where the land is cheap, where they can afford a home, and they're coming to Omaha for work. But they're starting all these wonderful like little co-ops.
It's like regenerative.
It is. They're regenerating these small like towns that were kind of dying off. Honestly, it really was. They were really sad and decrepit, and now they'll have like a Thai restaurant. They'll have a brewery, and it's like these 29-year-olds who are doing it. And I'm like, bravo! I think it's wonderful. I'll go there just sometimes to go buy lunch and support and walk around. Like, what they're doing is amazing, and it's happening whether people like it or not. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
That's it. That's the same thing happening here. There's two pathways I'll go with that. Love seeing Gen Z folks embracing like the hard manual labor blue collar jobs.
Yep.
And that's something that I recently saw a statistic in online. And it's just like the callback to like hard labor and blue collar jobs that everyone's kind of abandoning.
Yep.
And coming from that background originally and doing landscaping, like I really appreciate that. Like every scoop of dirt that I do, I have a visual difference of like the work I'm doing. And by the end of the day, that transformation is so encouraging, and it's addictive. Like just like transforming a space is so addictive. I forgot my other pathway, but I'm sure it'll come back around.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine. Yeah. I'm really hoping that this catches on, and there are like a couple local businesses I would really love to work with because they do also such great community work. So there is a restaurant in town called Raquel's, and they used to have drag shows.
Okay. Great.
And they basically like, at least like the drag artists, like they got chased out of town. Like people protested them so much because there were children present.
Right.
I don't want to begin to like explain like this is theater. This is not.
It is theater. You're exactly. You nailed it.
Discarding garments because like everything would everything would fall apart. Like,
Yep.
there's so much to it. And so, and then our local bakery, H&R Bakery, has our county's LGBTQIA plus chapters
Beautiful.
meetings every
Beautiful.
Wednesday. And then there's a local church, the Presbyterian Church. They also hold LGBTQ. The pastor wears a rainbow thing. And they also have a warming station for the homeless when it's cold. They have like these massive feasts for these folks who either are houseless or are just having trouble with their heater, can't afford to pay the bill, or just need a warm meal and don't have the resources to buy groceries. So yeah, it's really wild, and it's challenging a lot of my experiences as a kid. I'm very opposed to churches, and I grew up with that like shoved down my face, as many of us here do. It's Tornado Valley, it's the Bible Belt, it's all in one. The Midwestern Gothic is a thing, and I love to see it. I just physically, I don't think I can like step into a church or I'll burst in flames. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to see that, and it's an awesome change. But then we have wild resistance, just like there is some very stern resistance. And so if I'm going to be a business owner, if I'm going to be accepting money from people, like I'm going to make sure that I do things to those who are like serving the community. And so I'm thinking of ways that I can get like a special gardening class up, but it's like only for the LGBTQIA group that week. And
that's a great idea.
Because I'm not personally someone who's going to be like going to the farmer's market and selling stuff.
Right.
I like to give away my veggies and things because they're not always perfect. And I think the farmer's market can like be a little pricey too. And so to combat that, I think I'll give that stuff away, but then like the knowledge, like I will teach you, and you'll pay.
Teach a person to fish. I mean, like this is a beautiful thing. I mean, you could hold like little like Saturday morning clinics, like.
Yeah,
I would be there with bells on. I'm telling you that right now.
Well, that's it. And then it's just being able to see the garden like once a month with them, and just being like, okay, here's how you harvest this, here's how you cut this back. Let's start some of these seeds while we're here, and just kind of having that like that flow all summer long, and being able to maybe even carry it into winter if things don't pop off weather-wise like they did this year. So yeah, I'm very excited for that, and I have a couple clients that we'll be working with and getting them. I mean, from the ground up, we're just starting with a bunch of raised beds, and we're kind of discovering some vegetables and plants that they maybe haven't tried or interested in, and some of the good olds, and just getting that all started for everybody. That's going to start very soon, and so hopefully I have some people that are interested in doing ongoing lessons. And
you will. I think you're going to have great success, and not to mention, you are making me absolutely Jones to start like thinking about buying plants and like seeds and stuff like that. Like I had always wanted to garden, and when I moved back to Omaha, like in LA, it was just impossible. I didn't have time, and I didn't have the space. Now, where I'm in Nebraska, it's like pretty easy to get the space, to be honest. It's not the most expensive place in the world. And I have a beautiful vegetable garden. And I mean, it has been the most, like, I can't tell you, satisfying thing I've ever done in my life. Like you were saying, you said something very interesting to me. It's like, with my job, like as an actor, it's like most days I'm not acting on a set. The days I'm working like on a set and shooting something, those are very satisfying. But the rest of the time I'm auditioning, just interviewing for jobs. I never see progress that way. But with my garden and doing like yard work and some landscaping, like you said, you actually visually get to see the progress you're making. And there is something like that words fail to describe how satisfying that is.
Agreed.
So, I love it.
I love it.
What you're doing is a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you. I wish we lived closer so I could just. I've been starting seeds every week. I have like a succession plan this year, and so I'm getting like these big ass dahlias. I'm so excited. Bringing some of Seattle back with me. And I'm just like, I crave people to share it with, and so yeah. But I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Well, I come around late April. I may be like, Bex, so I'm gonna try eggplant this year.
Well, I need to go to the Bigfoot Museum, so I can make it a whole thing.
Look, you got a place to stay. You can stay with my wife and I. We'll make you great dinner.
Awesome. Yeah, me and my partner maybe to make a trip. We're little road trippers, so we'll let's make some plans.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the drive, because I was driving to Kentucky a lot last summer, and then the drive there is like, people say, oh, it's the Midwest. Like, it's a wonderful drive, actually.
Yeah, I
from
love
Omaha
attention.
to where you are. It's a gorgeous drive. Most
I
of it is
love
wonderful.
it. I will tell you that like the I've done the cross country trip
Sure.
6 times now. Just moving to LA and back, Seattle and back, Alaska and back. And yeah, it's been wild, but the first time I ever saw like acid rain trees was in Iowa, Nebraska. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, like all those
Yeah.
acid rain deniers out there. Like, what do you
It's
call
real.
that? But
Yeah.
then at the same time, I was like, I love it so
Yeah.
much because it just shows up so good in a black and white film.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, it
sorry,
it
Mother Nature.
it does, and you know that's you are providing the best segues because I want to talk about your photography here. Like that is how I became aware of your work. Is I can't remember exactly, but like I started seeing your photographs. So I was like, oh no, what is this? Instantly, they're so drop dead beautiful, but there's also this like real like kind of like I feel like I'm looking at something familiar, but it's like familiar from a dream. It's like these like it feels like some of these pictures. I'm like, I feel like I've been to that place. I'm not sure why, but there's this creepiness, and you know, so I'm saying all your photography, but the photography I've seen seems to be mostly black and white, and it is so wonderful. Tell me about like because I mean I feel like you know your photography is a great representation of what I love about like high strangeness. It's these landscapes, it's the geography that can
Truth's
tell
there.
these stories. Like
Yeah.
your photos tell a story, you know, and it's kind of one of these things where you co-create the story. But like, talk to me about your photography and your kind of like high strange influence because I can tell it's there.
It definitely is. So, part of it is one of my film photo teachers in the same year I had two, but the first one was like into all of the local spooky stories, which I believe we're going to touch on as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so she introduced me back in 2010 to a lot of like our local haunted spots, and she'd have like newspaper clippings, and she would have little like burnt DVDs of local like ghost hunting groups going there, and it was just so amazing. And so when I was learning how to like we did like little cardboard cameras, little pinhole cameras, and we developed our film, and we also were running the school newspaper. And so we were doing like the journalism, and I wrote an article about like a local cemetery and like the ghost hunt that me and my friends had done, and it's still on the internet, and it's really
That's great.
embarrassing. Um, but then in that same 6 months, I had another film teacher at the other school I went to, and she was the most encouraging human being I've ever encountered, worked with, shared creative energy with. And she would just leave the most amazing notes and would always be like, I know everyone's shooting on this same like black and white film stock, but yours is just like unsettling. I don't know what
Right.
it is. And so I have this note here. I can't zoom in or my whole setup will fall apart. But
Okay.
it's a note from that teacher, and it says, Becca, which is I used to go by.
Right.
Super creepy. Zombies? I got a 90 out of 100.
Zombies? I love that.
And I have some of my old contact sheets that you
Oh,
would do
yes.
on the enlarger. I don't have this piece of equipment, but I have like my full darkroom for processing the film. I just don't have the darkroom set up for doing the prints.
Right.
Because that is exponentially more expensive.
Oh,
But I have
beautiful.
an enlarger that haunts me, not just haunted by the ghosts of the ancestors and the weird Indiana goblins. But this enlarger in Seattle got away from me for $100, and I had to
Right.
think about it every day. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't even like fit it in my car that day. And so
Uh-huh.
moving back, I was like, this is going to be a nightmare to ship. We'll let it go.
Yeah.
And every day I think about that enlarger.
Well,
People who don't know enlarger, you put the negative in there, it shines a light, and it projects the image onto photo paper.
right.
So, but I
I
have like my
remember
cameras, and I have film stock, and I have like all of these like props to answer any questions you may have about film.
well, it's amazing, but like I mean, like you know, no, I mean, like I shouldn't say no one because you are. I'm sure there's other people, but like there is very few people who are working with film, let alone black and white film, in 2025. And I mean, like, look, I'll be honest. Like, I sound like such an old, grumpy old man about this, but like, I kind of have a problem with like cinema. I'm a big cinema fan, right? But like,
Same.
I find myself watching things that are like 1998 and below because I don't like the way the digital looks and feels. And I know you can do stuff in After Effects to make it feel like film, and a lot of it is like hardly undetectable. To me, I can tell, and I feel like there's a warmth missing with digital. And I'm not saying digital photography is great. It's wonderful that we have this technology. People can go make their movie. I am all for that, and it's cheaper. I get it. I'm supportive. I'm saying for personally, aesthetically, I miss celluloid. I really do. And I think that's why I gravitate to your photography so much. I'm like, it feels like a relief to me. It feels like this, like, just, I'm like, oh, this is how I see things in my dreams. I see them I see them in film. I see them in celluloid. I don't see things in 4K digital in my dreams. Like.
Same. That's the thing. It's like, I couldn't really describe the exact moment that either like the paranormal started to intersect more with the film, because it's kind of always been a theme, um unintentionally, I guess. But then I also have a lot of like the dream work that I've done in the past and how that's influenced. But the area here also is just really influencing the work lately.
Mm-hmm.
Um and just like an ode to the return,
Yeah.
and seeing it with this new lens, I haha. And
Right.
yeah, it's wild to kind of pinpoint exactly when I even was like fully back in, because like I developed some rules the other day that were from my time in LA, and my time right before I left, and they were very hard to process because they were very crusty and
Right. Right.
gross and color, so it takes a lot longer to process. But um it's so wild, the memories, and just being like, oh, like I've kind of, I guess I've always just had a film camera in my hand, and I never fully gave it up.
Good.
And it would be wild because I would be gifted digital cameras from my friends, and like every couple years there would be like a Canon Rebel come my way, and something would always end up happening to it.
Right.
But all of my film cameras have just always been, and I would just sit on a baggie of film for years, and then I would go through a period where I would like mass develop, and then I would sit on, I would develop another baggie's worth. And that's just kind of been my process up until right before I was leaving Seattle. I was like, all right, like I think there's an intersection here, because I was photographing a lot of places just automatically doing work with Luminal Earth, and just capturing the tone and like the visuals of this insane peninsula I was on. Um and just trying to figure out a way to communicate like a feeling. And so that's, I think, what brought me back full, was seeing some of the work I had done in the past and being like, that influence is there, but like I just made that connection intellectually in my brain. Okay, like let's just go with it. And so
Yes.
I do have like a lot of imposter syndrome, and I do have
I
just
hear
kind of like
that.
an endless catalog of negatives and things, and I'm like, how what am I going to do with all this? And so slowly but surely I've been trying to do like a journalistic approach where I have the photos, and I've been doing a lot of writing on like my Patreon. And I did it back in Luminal Earth days on their Patreon, and they would be just called like case logs or something. And so it would be often a map entry that I would just kind of fall down into that rabbit hole, and I would be like screenshots galore, like here's the area, here's the lore, here's the UFO sightings in the area, here's all of these legends, here's like Joe Bob interview. I walked up to his house and talked to him, and here's photographs to kind of like capture the mood. And
Oh
it
yeah.
was amazing to do that. And so starting my own Patreon years later, it's kind of the direction I'm still going. And um just kind of balancing and juggling everything and being overwhelmed with society right now. It's been kind of slow, and winter is hibernation
It
anyway,
is.
so I'm,
It
I'm a
is.
landscaper.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm getting back into it here in the spring. Once it's warm, I'm gonna be out all over
Yeah.
photographing. But yeah, it's interesting too, moving back to your hometown and seeing it differently, and how all of my experiences in the past have influenced me now, and realizing that this is the spookiest place I've ever been.
Yes.
And I'm from here. Like, this made me.
I
This
know.
incredibly weird place
I
made me.
look. That is so interesting to hear, because when I moved back to Nebraska, I mean, like, it was COVID was raging, so my work was like shut down for like a year and a half, and then I went on strike,
Yeah.
and so I had like a couple of years where there was just nothing happening, which was awful financially, of course. But what it
Yes. Oh
did,
my
it gave
gosh.
me time to delve deep into Nebraska, the history of folklore, high strangeness, mythology, whatever you want to call it. I at first it was like, well, there's some things that happen in Nebraska, but Nebraska is one of those states that's just not that weird. And boy, was I wrong. And now I feel like Nebraska is the scariest, most weird place like on around. But that kind of goes to show it's like if you dig deep in your hometown, wherever you're from, I don't care where you're from, you will find so much weird stuff. And what does that say? It says that the whole country, the whole planet is weird.
Absolutely. And that was another like main tenet I loved of Liminal Earths was that like you got to go find that weirdness. And that
Mm-hmm.
weirdness, I mean, Jeremy and Garrett had started it years before I had jumped on. But when I did jump on, we all came to the realization that we had come from these very weird areas. And for me and Garrett, especially, it was very small, isolated areas. And so if you can just, I don't know, you can feel it in the air when you're there. And when you're a teenager growing up, like, what are you doing? You're like going out and trying to have like a good scare. And
Right.
that's the activity for the weekend. And so when we kind of all came together, we realized that it was very important to like uncover those spots everywhere and to hear it from the people who live there and who
Yep.
experienced it. And so that was something that I really admired and wanted to do prior to knowing Liminal Earth. Joining them, that was like the biggest joy was being able to work with them and like have this cause, and then post Liminal Earth, carrying on those ideas and then figuring out how it intersects with me and my art.
I love it. I love it. I pulled this you wrote this wonderful kind of like piece on your Instagram. It's like a kind of a get to know me piece. And I pulled a couple quotes. I hope you're not embarrassed by this, and you should not be. But like sometimes people are embarrassed by their quotes. But I thought they're wonderful, and I have some. I was like, ooh, this spiked my interest. So one quote is, "My work now mainly involves this experimenting with ritual and on-location processing to increase the likelihood of anomalous manifestation within the film captures." Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yes. That is something newer. That is something I have been thinking on for the last few years, but have only been able to do it a couple times now, just with the logistics of photochemicals and wanting to be environmentally responsible in the space I'm in. And um, honestly, being able to like stay in one spot for hours to be able to complete the process, it's not something I can always do in haunted locations,
Yeah.
especially here, because the majority of them are like outdoor
Yeah.
locations, and so there's a lot of factors. But over the years, I've been able to kind of hone in my black and white chemical process down to like one jug, and it's room temp, and so I can now go into nature and do this whole thing with like, I don't know, like a litter box kind of tub deal, and
Yeah, sure.
keep all the chemicals contained, and being able to process on site. And so my first big location that I was able to do this was at the Crump Theater in Columbus, Indiana. And I'm so thankful that I got access to that property, because it was one of those properties when I was a teenager. I was like, oh my gosh, this is an abandoned theater and I wish I could go in there. Upon returning to the area, it's been restored, and the person is very open-minded to spooky things. And
That's awesome.
there's a local investigator I love working with, Matthew from Paraholics, and he's also in the Euphomet world. And so, yeah, he's kind of been my plug to the theater and has been like the support. We did like an event together there with the Ghost Brothers last fall, and that was really fun. But yeah, so my theory is film can be manipulated. There's a lot of weird processes that happen when you introduce film to these chemicals, when you introduce film to an environment. And so yeah, I started my process by walking around the theater by myself, photographing. I do a lot of flash photography, a lot of non. I try to just kind of have as many variables as possible, just like boom boom boom. And I went to the upstairs ladies' restroom where there's this large sitting area, and I just sat there and did the chemical process, hung them to dry.
Oh,
There's
I love
photos,
it.
there's a video I've been trying to put together of that process and just seeing what manifests. And in that particular set of photos, there's two like questionable photos. It's not as clear as like the static cat or the screaming man thing that I'd love to discuss as well, but
Please.
when we were in like the higher seating, in this theater, it has segregated seating still, and then there's like really high nosebleed seating, and in that area there was what was believed to be like the outline of a figure sitting and just kind of like waiting in the chair, but it wasn't clear enough for me to like put my stamp on it or to like post it or anything,
Right.
but it's just kind of something that that the staff thought was, you know, interesting, and they kind of pointed it out. But that's something that's still ongoing, and that's something that I would love to continue to do there. But there are other areas I would really like to do it, especially outside, and just allowing the environment and any like potential phenomenon, allowing them enough time and enough like access to be able to like manipulate it. Because if I'm just there, shoot, and then I go home and develop, um, that's like a normal process. But then like looking at it from like the witchcraft angle and from like the kind of paranormal ideologies we have in this little niche community we're in, I'm thinking like most time exposure, you know, introducing introducing the film roll to the environment, using like local rocks and local water and things to create like an altar space, and a lot of these things I'm kind of entertaining and practicing with. Nothing's set in stone, but just kind of relying on those ideas of like the environment manipulating it, phenomenon manipulating it, and giving as long of a time window as I can for that to potentially occur. With that being said, though, I have had a couple very interesting photo incidences that were indie, just from like a snap and go, and
Oh,
of course you
really
don't
now?
know until you develop. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, this the whole. I mean, when you say ritual as I mean, like the develop everything you're talking about, like
Yeah.
developing. This is very ritualistic and also very alchemical.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes,
this is.
working with silver,
I
literally.
mean, honestly, this is amazing. Please, I just want to interject that really quick because I'm like, ooh, this is like. I love this so much. By the way, hello, kitty. You have a wonderful cat in the
Oh my
background.
gosh. That's Fozzie. He's
Hi,
drinking my
Fozzie.
water.
Oh my god, yeah,
No, please don't put your foot in it. Oh
yeah.
god.
My cats love to put their paws in my water, then they'll wave it around. You know. Oh, hi, Fozzie. You're
He's a little
adorable.
chirper. So he's um becoming a young man cat, and
Uh
he's
huh.
going through changes right now. And so he's about to go to the vet, and
Yeah.
the changes have been kind of rough for us. They've been a
Yeah.
little messy.
Yeah.
But him and my male cat, who was there at the beginning of all the little earth stuff intersecting with me and things, I found him in a dumpster in Tacoma. And
Oh.
he's the only cat that he's ever been able to get along with. Any male cat, excuse me. And
Right.
so yeah, I got him through happenstance, and I was just trying to find him a home, and then I ended up keeping him because I'd never seen him get along with
Well,
anybody.
you
So
both lucked out.
and I do have like the really floofy floofs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just nervous about Fozzie standing on stuff because he does have like a pretty weak bladder right now.
Right. Right. Right.
He'll yeah. So
Yeah. Well.
we're trying to like get ahead of that.
Yeah.
But
It's.
he's grown up quick.
Yeah. It'll solve it. It'll work out. It'll work out.
We've been through it with the other male cat, but it's just like I don't know how this happened, but all three of my fur babies are male.
Right.
And they're white, gray, and black, so they're like a gray.
Cats. I love them so much. I love them so much.
I do too. They're great.
You know, obviously, you know this, but many people may not know that Southern Indiana is the home to a lot of weird stuff, such as Bigfoot sightings, haunted places, UFOs, and so on. And it's also just a hop, skip, and a jump from Kentucky, which we all know is a very weird place. So, can you tell us a little bit about, or like, what kind of manifestations of the weird and strange and unusual in Southern Kentucky or Southern Indiana are you really fond of and have looked into, and that kind of means something to you? You said, you sent me kind of a list. I don't know if you just want to kind of pick some of those apart. Like,
Yeah.
I wrote down a
Some I
couple
didn't
too. I
include.
want to ask you about that I'm very
Sure.
fascinated with. So, like, yeah. But can you please? The first one on the list that already intrigued me so much is Henderson Park, fungi, booze, and satanic panic. All three things I'm fond of.
I didn't want to do like the the Wizard of Oz, the oh my after three things, but I couldn't help it. I love alliterations, and I love the Wizard of Oz nods to the trifecta. But sorry, I got lost. Yes, so Henderson Park is a wild place, and that's like a working title for a big piece I'm writing on my Patreon, just breaking down the history of this
Beautiful.
nature preserve right outside of town here. And a lot of people don't know about it. It's not like on Google Maps, really. It's kind of hard to find.
Right.
But it's right off of a main highway, and it's called Henderson Park Road. And so you just follow that until it's gravel. And it's a nature preserve, and like the Nature Conservancy of America takes care of it. But it is a very well preserved old growth forest with a lot of caves and a lot of like artifacts from
caves. So you guys have a
There's
good cave
3.
scene?
Yeah, and that's we have a huge cave scene because we are the limestone capital of the world.
Oh, lucky.
In, Bedford, Indiana. Yeah. But my middle school mascot was a cutter, which is horrible when you're an emo girl. And they're like, anyways, I don't want to expand on that. But you're like, but stone cutters.
Yeah,
so like
yeah. No, I got you. Sorry, I was laughing at the pun of the whole thing. Sorry.
I know. It's good on many levels. But yeah, and so I grew up with that and just following all those theories of limestone and like the significance of limestone in this area. Like there's a hotel that has like this limestone passageway that goes to like the bar and the bowling alley that's really wild. And
nice.
The hotel itself is very active. But yeah, a lot of the cave activity and caves are like a really interesting part of my childhood because I lived on a rural farm and we had like undiscovered little cave holes that we would kind of fall into if we weren't careful. And so, yeah, we had sinkholes and things as well. And so it was an interesting landscape to navigate. But then like my cousin's property down in Marengo where they have Marengo Cave, it's like up there with Mammoth Cave. They're part of the same system. But Marengo is like one of the most north entrance, I think, of the Mammoth system, and it's in southern Indiana. But yeah, she lived there, and her cave property was connected to all of that as well. And so there's just a lot of childhood memories exploring those kind of landscapes. And so this park has all of that, and it also has a lot of historical significance with like moonshine and whiskey, stilling, and then mills, of course, grain mills. And it was like a stagecoach highway. And it would take you from the Spring Mill Pioneer Village that I talk a lot about to Henderson Park to Salem, and then down to New Albany was like the big hub back in the day. And so, yeah, Henderson Park, one of the first things I ever heard about it on like the early 2010s forums was that witches go there to sacrifice men.
Okay, here we go. I love folklore.
I know, right? And there's a lot of satanic panic around. They're very undocumented, and this is like a big argument in my community of whether or not this newspaper article exists. And I've asked the library, we're like in a whole mess trying to find it, but someone in town who always posts anonymously knows and has this newspaper clipping claiming that there was a satanic cult that murdered teenage girls out there.
Okay.
And so you have that level, but no obits related to that,
right?
To witches hanging out in the caves and like the Grim Reaper, them having like weird parties that result in like a male death. Very wild. And so you're reading this and you're like, oh my god, this is kind of a scary place. So I was always really scared and like reluctant to go into this area. But then when I had moved and come back, I realized that it being an old growth forest, it has a shit ton of mushrooms that come up all throughout the year. But especially in the spring, we have the morels. Sorry, I'm like disclosing my spot. But like, if you want to walk 5 miles, be my guest. Like,
yeah,
I will.
I mean, morels is a big thing in the Midwest.
And so that's a spot. And then all throughout the year, it's like I just study them a lot just for fun and just to like document. Like I take little samples and I dry them out, and I have little tool or tackle boxes full and of photos, and like I have binders of just like forms of like identification. But
I love this.
Yeah, so throughout the year I'm going there and I'm like contemplating cave phenomenon, which is a big part of this niche community now, and being a witch myself and just joking like, haha, like I do come here and this is a still place where I leave offerings and I practice, and it just cracks me up that those rumors are true, some of them. And then, contemplating and like looking for artifacts from those stagecoach times, and just it being a crossroads in itself. This area that people came through all the time, but would hardly ever stay put in. And so, yeah, it's a really wild place, and it's a place that has a lot of like Bigfoot lore as well. And so,
really now?
yeah, and yeah, Indiana is a very huge Bigfoot
It really does.
area, and it's unsuspecting. But then I have a kind of a hard time intersecting into that because of the difference in demographic between like a PNW Bigfoot guy and like a Midwestern Bigfoot guy.
It's so different.
It's different, and there's like guns involved, and I just don't want to be a part of it. And there's a lot of like weird QAnon crossover.
Yeah. There's a whole fascist Bigfoot scene. I mean,
really gross.
It is. Well, same with UFOs and same with the paranormal. Like, it really is.
Bros love UFOs, huh?
Dude, it makes me. I can't take it. I cannot take it. It makes me.
I'm the same.
Sad.
I can't follow any of the hashtags. I can't do it.
No. As you should
dangerous.
Not. Stay away
from
that.
The witchcraft ones are getting weird. I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, so I actually had a Bigfoot experience in Salem.
Oh my God!
It was not at Henderson Park, but it was Martinsburg Road. I have it on the Liminal Earth map. I think I mapped it correct, but like I take this road all the time. It's a shortcut to get to like Louisville and the bigger areas.
Right.
But it's a back road, and it gets really dark at night. It's very windy, and yeah, I remember it being prom night in 2011, and we were hardcore kids, so we like were at prom for like 15 minutes, and we're like, this is stupid, and like wandered around Walmart, I think was like our big jam at the time. And so we were driving, and I think like, Asking Alexandria had a new album out that year. And so we were like listening to that, and like 2 incidents had occurred on this road, but one of them was taking a curve and seeing like a 7.5 foot tall, like white hairy man.
What the ding dong?
With blue eyes. and what I remember is like he like obviously slammed on his brakes, and that caused the thing to like look, but it was like it could like make eye contact with us through this like heavy tent, and then it crossed the road in like 2 or 3 steps. It was like so quick, and it just like turned and like looked at us, but like kept going. And I just remember it being so weird between us. Like we didn't speak about it, and we were just so freaked out. And I had never heard of like a white Bigfoot or anything, so I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a really old senile man that was just a giant and covered in hair. And yeah, and so I was like really freaked out. But then on that same road, same person, same activity, driving around to hardcore music, someone like started to speed up behind us and like flicking their lights and honking at us, and we were like, oh my God, there's nowhere to turn off on this back road. There's ditches and driveways. And so we take this curve, and this person's needing to get around us, and we're just like, are they, is this an emergency? What do we do? We're like 15.
Yeah.
And so eventually we take this turn, and it like sharply turns, and there's a driveway. So we like cut off into it, almost hit the ditch, and we're looking back, and we're waiting for this person to speed off. And they never make that curve. And so we turn around and we go back, and we're looking for them in the ditches. We have deer spotlights. Because, we're in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So we have like the deer spotlights, and we have whatever, looking, and we were like, we're going to have to dig someone out of a ditch. This night's getting really wild. We could not find them. Like they were nowhere. And so, audible honks, visible lights brightening, revving, like just like someone needing to get around us quick, and they just never passed. So I call that the Phantom Road Rager.
Yeah, the Phantom Road Rager. Yeah. But first of all, I want to just the white. So it was like, I mean, that's kind of like multiple witnesses seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is really, really rare, right?
It's weird.
And I want to ask you this: have you heard of any other stories of a white Bigfoot in the area?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Over in Vincennes, I saw it on the Liminal Earth map. Someone had posted, and then when I did the Crump Theater paranormal event last October, and like the Ghost Brothers were there, and that was really fun getting to know them and investigating with them. But the Indiana Bigfoot guy was there, and I like treaded lightly because I don't know him. He doesn't have like an online presence. He's this older dude, and I don't kind of know where he stands on like if I should have basic rights and things like that. And so I'm like, I got a Bigfoot story. Yeah. Like, tell you it. And so, we end up talking, and it's fine, but like you can't be too careful these days.
Yeah.
And I tell him, and he was like, I can't tell you the amount of like the influx of the white Bigfoot stories I've been getting in our area. And he brought up Henderson Park.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
I'm going to Henderson Park. I'll tell you that much.
I would love to take you to Henderson Park.
Please, I'm telling you. Well,
I'll in the spring.
I'm telling you, this spring, I believe in. Sorry, listeners, you have to listen to us make plans about Bigfoot hunting.
I'm clicking my tent too.
But you are. I'm not editing this out. Okay. I will be driving to Kentucky this spring, probably like in May.
Okay.
And I will buy you and your partner the most fabulous dinner at the Thai restaurant, wherever you'd like to go, if you can take me to Henderson Park.
I would love that. I can take you to so many places.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
Town. Like we have, there's so much.
Great. I guess I'm moving there. And, I'll tell my wife she gets home from work. Sorry, hon. Pack the bag.
It's one of my goals. There are a few Victorian homes in the area that I've loved since I was a kid, and one of them is like Pepto Pink. And I need to buy one of these homes, and my goal is to have like a spooky place kind of in the hub of all these areas, but like one that like friends can come.
Amazing.
I don't have the space right now, but just having like this big historical home with some lore. It doesn't have to be haunted, but it's like kind of walkable to all the places in town that we can go. That's like the dream.
Sounds like a dream.
So
I want this for you very bad.
Just stay.
That's right. And look. I am a Nebraska boy, so like I have no problem. I bring my tent with me when I road trip.
Perfect. Yeah.
I love camping. I'll just camp in your backyard. I don't need a bed or anything. That's one of those lucky people who can sleep anywhere. I can sleep in a bathtub, and I have.
Yes. Yeah. Some of my fondest memories ended in a bathtub.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bad place to sleep, folks. Honestly, they get a bad rap, but bathtubs can be quite comfortable.
That friend, like when you go on a trip and there's only 2 beds, I'm like, you know what? I'll take the tub.
Me too. Yeah, I'll sleep on the floor, man. Just like give me, like a comforter or something like that.
I'm just happy to be involved.
Me too. Me too. Well, you and I have I think a common trait, and that is you love rural adventure. I can tell from your photography, from just talking to you today, like, sister, I am 100% with you. That is that's my idea of a perfect vacation at this age, where it's like, hey, sure, you go to Hawaii, go to Europe, or one of those lovely places. Or you can go to this rural area like Henderson Park and go explore it for 48 hours. Nothing sounds better to me. I'm not even joking, like in the world. That is what I want to do with my life.
It's the jam.
It is the jam.
That's, I spent so long being like, I'm moving back to Indiana where I started. I've escaped so many times. Here I am back. And it's that like small town rural exploration like magic that's like transformed my life, to be honest.
That's where they're like, and I know in Pennsylvania, in like kind of like in the Appalachian areas like West Virginia, their folk magic is still being practiced. Like it's an old, long tradition. I don't know if it's the Dutch or
granny magic. It's granny magic. Yeah.
And granny magic is alive and well in the Midwest, I think. And there's something just creepy, and I say that in a great way, about the Midwest, where like if you go out at night in the rural Midwest, I don't care, Kansas, Indiana, wherever you are, it is genuinely terrifying.
I will not go to Henderson Park at night. I tell you that. I've tried. Yeah. I've tried to do like the meteor showers and shit there. I can't make it all the way down. I'm so creeped out by it.
It is. I'm mostly creeped out by people, but yeah.
That's the thing, though. It's like exploring rural areas as like a single lady that doesn't really love guns is an interesting feeling and experience, and especially one where there's like questionable like meth looking trailers in the parking lot area, and you're like, oh god, and you hear like gunshots in the distance of like people on their private property, but it's close enough that I'm like, I'm gonna blare metal music just so you know I'm here then. Like I don't know, like fuck the birds. I can't listen to the fucking birds anymore because you're just shooting these damn guns. And so, like, how am I gonna, like, figure my shit out if you were to, like, come over into this public land? So yeah, I definitely recommend not exploring alone. But
seriously, it's a buddy system situation.
It's a buddy system, but this is something I've done a long time. But yeah, it is an interesting segue into one of my most recent explorations that just kind of I wouldn't say that like my view on things have changed, but just feeling that old feeling I haven't felt in a long time. Of just like, oh shit, this is scary, and this may not be like this may be like a more negative situation here. Like this energetically, this is like not neutral. I'm a big neutral person. I'm a big like inhuman entity person, and I can't like pinpoint exactly what it was, but I can delve into that. So
please delve into it. Delve deep.
I knew that we were getting together. We had this scheduled for a while, and so I made my last Instagram post just kind of at a segue where I wanted to tell the story here, or in just some place. But I thought like here was a good.
It is a great place.
Space, and then
thank you. Connected.
I'm honored. Of course, and so yeah, I posted a photo of this abandoned house, and it's in the middle of the field, and it's like a 2-story post-Victorian, but not like modern 2-story house. And the driveway has completely disappeared and overgrown. And so I'm like pulling into like the side of a hill where like the corn has been harvested in the field, and the house has like a little bit of a lawn, but I'm like pulling into tall grass pretty much. And I get out and I see this sign, and it's basically indicating that this property had been affected by arson, and they were investigating it. And something that's random about me is I had a job for a long time where I was doing insurance photography, and I was photographing like people's houses and their property for different claims and things. And so I did a lot of like arson, or not arson, but just fire related things.
Sure.
And then I did a lot of like vacancy checks, which was very interesting. And so I'm kind of like getting my story together.
That seems kind of scary.
It has been. It has been, especially when I was younger doing it. Now, you kind of, there's like a repertoire to it. I don't do it anymore, thank goodness. But, yeah. And so I kind of know the protocol of like how to make sure that no one's living there. And checking, for vacancy and things. And then having that script, if I were to kind of get caught and someone's like, you shouldn't be here. I have a script. And so I felt okay exploring this property. But my mistake was like not bringing my phone. I parked and I walked maybe 50 feet to the house, but I was like, this is gonna be quick. I have like 2 shots left on my camera. I'm just gonna spend those. This looks very dilapidated, and like the structure of a burnt building can be very unassuming, and so I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah.
And I'm alone, so I really don't push it. I try to just do external shit and move on. I'll shoot through windows and whatnot, but I really try to push it. I try to make sure my partner has like some semblance of my safety and just not constantly being afraid for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm approaching this home, and it's just really spooky. I mean, you can see the back part of it was a little burnt up, but there's this whole front entrance that's facing away from the road in the field that you don't see. And so I'm walking up to it, and there's a porch that's pretty dilapidated, and the front door is kind of cockeyed. And so I'm peeking in, I'm taking some shots with like the field grass, that you get the vibe that it's overgrown. And then I'm doing like the peak, doorway shots. And as soon as I'm like, kind of like, hey, I won't twist the doorknob to open the door, but if it's cracked, I'm going to open it a little bit just to get a better shot. As soon as I like creak that open, I hear like running across the top.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh no, someone's here, unauthorized. Okay. And, mind you, one of our biggest issues in the area, no stigma, no judgment, mental health, and like drugs, they need better treatment around here. So it's not their fault, but people do manufacture various substances in this area. And there's a lot, that's kind of like primarily what our police department deals with. Yeah, I argue that they have a lot of downtime, but their main objective and their main arrests that you see in like the newspaper are like methamphetamine and heroin related, and a lot of transporting and manufacturing, and then you have a lot of house fires, and so they're investigating the arson. You kind of put it together. Did they return? You know, and yeah, so I'm like, shit, I'm gonna have to use my script, and these people, I'm interrupting. This is not good. And I don't have my phone, it's in my car.
Oy.
And so I start to hear like the like heavy, slow footsteps coming down the stairs. And I have visuals on the stairs. If you see that second photo I posted, you can see the crack. And there's like a living room, and then there's like a hallway. And so I can see the stairs. And I'm just bracing myself. I'm like, someone's going to be coming down them stairs. They could be like highly under the influence. They could be manufacturing. Like I don't know what I'm about to deal with. And I'm on my phone. So I have like my car key in like knife position. And I'm just like, I'm about to argue with somebody. This is going to be great. Yeah. And no one ever comes down. And I can hear like the footsteps, but I don't see anybody. And so I'm like, how are they making that noise? Like, how are they simulating footsteps? Like, are they trying to get me to leave? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to like turn around and I'm just going to take a few, you know, I was trying to take a few more photos, and then my film reel ends. And with my Leica, with this camera, it's a point and shoot, but it's, it has like a digital winding and unwinding system, but nothing else about it is digital. And so, or it's battery powered, but when it needs rewound, it goes for 32 frames. And so I've made my presence known if I haven't before. And I was like, fuck. And so I feel this like whoosh and coming from like inside the house, and I'm like, okay, that's my sign. I'm getting out of here. My camera's screaming. And as I'm leaving and running, the window that I just ran past breaks. And I just feel darkness. And I feel it's a very weird feeling that I get in like dreams and stuff a lot, where it's like the corners of my periphery darken. There's a vignette that happens. I don't know if it's just my photo head and being in Lightroom for 15 years, but the vignetting happens and I just feel sick and uneasy, and like I lose my breath, and like I get to the car and I just start crying, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Oh my God. And I have a photo I took, a selfie, that's going to be included in this Patreon story, and it's just a screenshot of me like exhaling. And like I'm just like, and then I have a video where I start to explain it, but I can't use it because I don't articulate. It doesn't go anywhere. I'm just like,
shock response.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? But that feeling that I got from that experience was something that I used to feel when I was like a teenager, and I would be exploring these areas, and some of the first times I would experience something just unnatural or natural but unexplained, and just being unnerved and just having that feeling of like no air in the lungs, and just okay. And I got the vignette, so that doesn't seem like it's something super friendly or neutral. And I have no explanation. I'm trying to get Matthew from Paraholics to come with me the next time, because he has all this incredible ATC equipment that goes over my head.
Yeah, me too.
You know, girl. But we've had some like really wild experiences with that, and I'd be very interested to explore that more. But that was one of the times where I like had my witchcraft necklace that I haven't put on after I showered, but it's like a triple moon. And it's from Cornwall, which is where my family on my dad's side is from, and so there's like this ancestral protection around it. And I like gripped my necklace, and I was just like, witch pray.
Yeah,
witch pray. I was like, don't fucking follow me.
Yeah,
stay the fuck away from me. I'm not playing right now. Like, I am the person to giggle in a graveyard all the time. Stay the fuck away from me.
Back off, Jack.
I know, and I was like, I do not want you influencing my film. I do not want you manifesting. Get the fuck away from me. Like, I'm gonna cleanse this roll of film.
Oh man,
I was so scared.
Yeah, who wouldn't be though?
So scared. And it's been such a long time since I've felt that feeling, and I'm a huge proponent in our community of like not being super pro fear-based paranormal investigations and all of like the oh my god it's a demon
Right.
all the things that a lot of like mainstream non-paranormally literate people experience and interpret as the field. And
Yeah.
so I felt that though, and I was having a very weird crisis about it where I was like, should I share this, because I don't want to promote something that like caused me fear, but then this is kind of like a return to like the feelings that influenced me to pursue this, and so like
Yes.
it's very, what do I do? So yeah, this is my first time really sharing it with
Wow.
not my partner.
Well, thank you. That is an
Yeah.
amazing story. I can't believe, there's one thing where these like invisible feelings and these invisible sounds, they are horrifying. But when you see it coupled with physical manipulation, a la a glass breaking, that is, I mean, like I don't think I would handle that very well. It'd be one thing to feel the whoosh and to hear the steps. That I'll be honest, like I'm not like this overly courageous person. I love this stuff and go and check it out, but I get scared all the time when I check this stuff out. I'll be
Really?
honest, like, and I try not to let the fear overcome me. But
Yeah.
in that situation, Bex, I don't know. I think I'd lose my mind.
It's
I'd
so
hightail it.
wild. Like, there are moments when I'm on like an investigation in a place that you know is haunted, a place you've looked into the history, and yeah, I'll get freaked out when they like lock me in that room, and I'm just like, especially in
Yeah,
the dark. I'm
yeah.
mixed because a lot of like my witchcraft practice is at night, and it's very nocturnally influenced. I'm Scorpio, like there's a lot of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
My photography,
Yeah.
enough said, but I just yeah, I have a hard time sometimes with that stuff as well, and I do get scared, and I'm just like I have a whole conundrum about how like I would go about sharing that and like what my thoughts are on it, and it's just knowing too much is often the case
Right.
for me. It's like, I know about you and you
Yeah.
have affected my friend over here. Like,
Right.
okay, go. And there's been times where I would have to like go live on Instagram or something because I would be alone exploring it. I'm like, I need moral support here. I need to
Yeah.
know that
Help
someone
me.
else is with me right now.
Yes.
There's a haunted museum about 30 minutes away from here, and it used to be a poorhouse, and there's all kinds of wild deaths that happen there, and not that death equals haunting 100%. I would argue very boldly against that, and have
Right.
on the radio show and things. And so um that place was so charged though, and they just kind of let me upstairs and were like, have fun. And all around me are these like museum artifacts and like people's clothes and people's bedroom sets and people's cameras and people's sport ball things. And
Yeah.
oh, it was so heavy. And I knew that a woman had died 5 feet from where I was standing, and I knew that her cat still maybe haunted the area. And I was like, here, get it, like trying to not be freaked out by everything. Um, yeah, and I went live. I was like,
Yeah.
help. I'm
Please, someone
so
there.
embarrassed for being the best part. Okay, so I was like, I'm so embarrassed for being scared right now. Like all the lights are off, and then I pan and it's still light outside. I'm like,
Right.
I'm
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Well, I honestly think like sometimes the daytime sightings or the daytime experiences are
scared.
like even more startling because like, we're so wired to say like, oh, the creepy stuff only happens at night. And when it happens during the day, it feels like it's breaking the rules. And you're,
Right?
whoa. You shouldn't be here.
That's the thing, right? It's like I can't capture things at night. I only capture things during the day.
Yeah.
Unless I just had like a really souped up setup, which I do not. And so all of the like paranormal captures I believe to have happened were in broad daylight. And so
Yeah.
that's a point that I like to make. But then like, yeah, it's interesting at night because like we had touched on earlier, I most of my paranormal experiences were like, was I asleep, was I awake, was this a dream? But then it ties in and manifests, and a synchronous storm happens and
Mm-hmm.
you're just
Mm-hmm.
left like, okay. um and so those night experiences are hard for me because I have like a lot of doubt around them, and I had a lot of like imposter syndrome of like, what was my experience even? And doing dream work to like look into all that. Yeah, that's kind of what the majority of my night experiences are. And so I would say, um to like finish out that thought, the majority of my experiences have been like in the daytime, other than
Mm-hmm.
the Bigfoot that was like right at sunset. And then the only time I've seen like a full body apparition was my grandfather at the farmhouse, and that was at like, middle of the night in my bedroom doorway. All of my other experiences have happened like in the daylight.
Wow.
So,
So I mean, like I mean, like Bex, it sounds like you have had quite a few experiences.
yeah, and
Starting pretty young, like.
Yeah, and I have a hard I don't remember who the creator was that I was talking to, but I was just kind of like paranormal experience dumping on them because they had mentioned like 2 or 3 in a row that I had also experienced, and I was like, okay, but this person doesn't know me, and I'm just claiming all of this shit right now, and
Right.
I'm just like, I saw this and I saw this too. But I mean, honestly, I have like family to back up, like, well, I have that dude that was with me with the Bigfoot one, and we haven't
Yeah.
spoken about it, and I don't particularly enjoy him as a person.
Right.
But like he did see it as well, and I bet would speak on it if pressed.
Yeah.
And then I had experienced a phenomenon with a Black Panther when I was 17. And it could have been like a flesh and blood animal.
Oh,
It
okay.
could
I
have.
thought you meant like someone in the Black Panther group. I was like,
Oh,
so okay,
positive
so
experiences with that group,
absolutely.
but
Well, so okay. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I am a massive because we have not trying to brag, but we have we have a nice history of the ABC alien black cat in Nebraska as
oh,
well. In fact, it
cute.
seems like all over the Midwest you find that, and I know Kentucky is a big black cat
Yes,
place. So
Florida.
you have seen one.
Yes.
Oh my
And
god.
my dad pressed. He was on the phone with me the whole time, so he heard it.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah.
I'm
So the
sorry. I'm
story.
so please. I mean, like you were
It's short
probably
and
the first
sweet.
person I've ever met who has actually seen one. Actually, no,
So
Delaney Bowers has seen one as well. Sorry.
really, okay. So I
Yeah.
have a friend. Just in case they want to remain private, I'll share with you after if they were okay sharing their story, because we had like synchronously connected on the Black Panther topic. And so yeah, this is referring to like a large mountain lion-esque animal but melanated.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is like mountain lions and like cougars of that sort still exist in the western part of the United States,
Uh-huh.
especially where I was living in Washington. We had a big problem with them,
Mm-hmm.
but they have not been here in Indiana since at least the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
If my information is correct, Google, who knows?
Yeah.
60s or 80s. But there's been many reports, and so of course I was 17, and my spectrum of paranormal experiences was like dead human.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my context as well. So when Ghost Hunter started coming out, it was like dead human or like, malevolent non-human entity.
Right.
And so that was kind of my context. I hadn't gotten into like the real weird shit yet, and so I didn't really have context for this experience. I just thought that it was like someone's big cat that had escaped or something. But essentially it was one morning at about 7 a.m. I was getting ready for school, and I had like a mirror propped up against like these 2 double windows upstairs in our farmhouse, and right outside of it was this massive elm tree, and it was definitely on its way out. Like it had like a colony of black snakes living in it, like it was being rotted.
Right.
And we were preparing to remove it, but its limbs pretty much reached my window, and I was getting ready, and I heard the craziest noise. I heard like a cross between a woman screaming, crying, and then it kind of being like a baby cackle-y
Oh
situation.
boy.
So just something that I wouldn't organically hear in my
Mm-hmm.
environment. And I look up, and there's this giant black cat sitting on the limb, just like, and like I'm gonna try like theater training. Come on.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like reared, and it was just kind of like looking at me like this,
What?
and it was just kind of like staring at me like.
And it was like mountain lion
It was
size.
just like, yeah. It was just sitting there, and it was just watching me, like eye contact, just like watching me like this, and I was like, oh, okay. And it's being really fucking loud. And so I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I can't go to school today. And bless my dad, he was a drywaller for like 4 years, and he would wake up, at like 4 a.m. and travel the state and do really hard work and get back after dark. And so,
Yeah.
like, yes, I was a very independent teenager, and I was responsible for getting to school and back and eating and it, so it wasn't at all abnormal for him to be gone. Anyways, and so he's on the phone and he's like, what are you talking about? The only cats we have around here are bobcats, and they're pretty small. They're bigger than Lily.
Yeah, they're
And
like a Maine Coon size. Yeah, totally.
They are, absolutely. Yeah. And they're very reclusive. Like, it's very rare to see one. And so yeah, he heard it. And then he was like, okay, you're not going to school today. You cannot leave the house. Like, do not go out there because it's positioned. It knew where we exited, because our like, not our front door, but our side door by the driveway and carport was right there. And so it could, if I walked out the doorway to go to the bus, it could have just been like, whoop, like perfect. Right. So just jumped right on top of me. And so my dad was like, what if you do? Like, don't go outside. But like, we have this sturdy brick house. I don't think it could break. Like, I'm like trying to figure out how a cat could break into my window. And yeah, and so we're having this wild conversation, and it's just looking at me. And this was 2012. So I don't remember how long that like standoff lasted. I know I was on the phone with him for a while, and I was just like not gonna go to school. But at some point, like, the standoff ended. I don't remember seeing if it left, just hopped down and where it went. My memory is just kind of like that happening, and then it being gone, and me being able to like make lunch and kind of like calm down.
Right.
And so there's always been a part of me that's like, maybe it happened like right before I woke up, and I just like freaked out, and the dream was so real. But my dad like still remembers.
We're on the phone with him. Yeah. Yeah.
And also describes it as that like woman screaming, crying, baby cackle-y,
which is such a hallmark of high strangeness. Like,
it is.
I mean,
Bridges.
Right. Well, the thing about the ABC is, I have reports going back to the 1890s in Nebraska where like the mayor of a small town was hiring dudes with shotguns and torches to go find the thing because they were killing livestock. They describe it as like a 9-foot-long creature. That is huge.
Whoa!
It would be like circling schoolhouses out in the country.
Oh
and
my
like,
God.
It was actually a problem.
Poor Amish are like, what is this?
What's happening? But it's funny because like where the reports of the ABCs are in Nebraska are also the places where the highest UFO reports are. Bigfoot and other kind of weird, like flying wing humanoids. So it seems to dwell in the weird zones. And so, and the thing is, I actually talked to a game and parks. This poor man, I bug him probably a handful of times a year. Because they will actually get called out to look at Bigfoot sightings and they don't check all of them out, but every once in a while, if it does like damage or if it's dramatic enough, they'll check it out. And I asked them, I go, well, have you ever, got any reports of like, Black Panther? He's like, oh yeah, sure we have, and he's like, but we think they're just probably melanistic mountain lions. I'm like, well, has anyone ever found a melanistic mountain lion? Is that a thing? He's like, well, not yet. So, even he admitted
Galante or somebody.
Yeah, even he admitted that. It's like, well, we're not, that's a theory that we're shaky on. So, but he's like, yeah, we still get reports. So
that's so wild.
Interesting.
Because people around here obviously have also, like, I described other stories I had heard after, but one of the wildest ones was through insurance photography. I was like taking pictures of this person's house who, like, a tree fell on it or whatever. It was tornado damage. And he was like, I don't know how we got onto this topic. Like, he's a middle-aged man. I just got out of high school. Like, we don't have a lot in common.
Right.
And we somehow got on the topic of this cat. And he had trail cam footage.
What?
Yeah. He had it on his little, I mean, this was, 2013, 2014 by this point. But he had, like, a little trail cam, his little memory card, and he was showing me footage of it. But this was when I was like preparing to leave for LA, and so it wasn't a priority of mine to be like, let me archive that footage or save it for later. Which now I'd be like, please, I will sell anything to you.
I know.
Have the copy of this.
I know.
But no, he showed me it, and I thought that was so wild because a lot of people claimed to have at least seen them in passing on trail cam footage and things. And so I don't have an explanation. I very rarely talk about that unless someone has a connection, just because I don't know, like the experiences start to pile up, and I love sharing stories, I love hearing stories, but I would hate for it to be like interpreted that I'm just like, just you had that, me too. You had that, me too. Like I don't want to be the Me Too
You're not
person.
trying to. You're not trying to. You don't want to be like a bragger.
I don't want to like one up or
right.
be like,
but like
every experience you've had, I had too.
Guess what? Yeah. Oh, you saw one flying saucer? I saw 7.
Right, but then it lines up sometimes where someone will bring it up and I'm like, okay, I can tell this story, but it's like people who followed my stuff and they're like, why are you just bringing this up? It's like, I'm trying to navigate this. This is all fucking weird.
And sometimes like, like I just started talking about like a weird experience I had probably like 4 years ago. That was genuinely the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. And I just like a month ago started talking about it. Where, where before I was like, I really haven't experienced anything weird, but I didn't know how to talk about it. Like, also, even though I experienced it with another person, like they saw the same thing, I'm still like, man, I don't know. Like it's like it was really dark and it was undeniable what I saw, but like, it was like, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of it. It really freaked me out. For 24 hours, I thought I was going to give all this stuff up afterwards. I was that like troubled by what I experienced.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was like, I think I'm out of. I'm going to burn my UFO books, man. I poked the bear and I got what I wanted. I don't like it. So,
have you? Is there anywhere that I could listen to this, or is there like a Cliff Notes version? Or I'd love to hear it, but I don't want to take up your time.
I actually think I might have talked about it on the WUFO live show, which I don't know if they archived those or not, but I think maybe I mentioned it there. I didn't even like decide to do it. It's like they were asking me, and I like just told it. I was like, "Whoa, that's the first time I ever told that." Like only like my close friends know about it. But
okay,
I'll tell you. I'll tell you after. Or I should probably tell in the show. But I don't want to cut off any more time because we're I've had you on for an hour and a half already. Speaking of, would you mind? I sometimes do this. Would you, for 45 seconds, be okay with just talking to the listeners about something, the last thing you're proud of that was very delicious that you made? And I'm going to be back in like 45 seconds.
Yes, absolutely.
Walk through the listeners, tell them about something wonderful you made. I'll be right back.
I'm so ready. I'm actually in the process of making it again, but it's like my signature mole enchiladas and like mole tamale. So this will be my first time making the tamale version. But I am like a super fan of mole negro, especially. Mole roja is really good as well. I love like salsa verdes and things. And so all of that to say, do like the black beans. If you're a meat eater, you can do like oxtail, you can do short rib, you can do chuck, you can do chicken. But I love doing enchiladas, but instead of doing the red sauce or the verde, I do the mole sauce. And yeah, there's something about like that corn tortilla, especially if you get the blue ones, they're a little higher in protein. Especially if you're a vegetarian or vegan, just get that protein wherever you can. Yeah, I love cooking the tortillas before having the sauce inside and then outside as well, and just having it run through everywhere. But then baking it and getting it so crispy and delicious is my fave. Perfect.
Oh, I cannot. It's always, you know what? I love it because it's always, whenever I do this, it's such a nice little surprise. When I go back and listen.
I was going to ask if you wanted to know or not. Okay.
No. Let me enjoy a surprise, please.
All you know is it's crunchy.
Yeah, good. Oh, I love a good crunch.
Me too.
I wanted to ask you something. I wrote this question down when because we had a while ago for you. I've been wanting to talk to someone who knows about Indiana weirdness. So for a while now, I have heard about this place called Mound State Park in Anderson, Indiana. Are you familiar with that area at all? It's Mound, like a.
Like the mounds.
Yeah, like mounds.
There's a couple of those throughout the state.
Right. Well, and, a lot of the mound builders are right around that area. But they have this history of Pukwudgie sightings.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
Yes. I didn't realize until moving back that we had like Pukwudgie phenomenon. I kind of associate that with just like a Midwesterner and like slightly Eastern thing.
Yeah.
But there is a local paranormal group here. I don't think I'm gonna drop them, just because a lot of our ideologies are conflicting, and I don't think I would participate in anything with them. And so
Right.
anyways, but they are insistent that they've had like Pukwudgie experiences, and that they kind of associate Pukwudgie phenomenon with, and this is something maybe I can like circle around and ask you about, because this is not something that I've like delved into too much.
Yeah, neither really.
But from really okay. So from what they are stating, to me, it kind of sounds like Fae activity. And that was something that I experienced in Seattle and my peninsula in Washington. So to come back here, and the way that they're describing it, it's just so similar. And it's just like very trickstery energy, very like inhuman nature based, but very like hijinks oriented.
Right.
I have like the picture in my head of like the illustrations that you see in like the cute cryptid books and stuff. And so I don't think that I've encountered anyone who's like seen one, but the nature of that activity that they claim Pukwudgie, I claim Fae and just nature.
Elemental
organic
type thing.
Nature.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some of the ways it was
spaces.
just, when I was researching, because you can, listeners, if you're interested in this stuff, which it is very interesting, it's Mound State Park in Anderson, Indiana. But the way it's described by people who have supposedly allegedly witnessed this phenomenon is that they're 2 to 3 feet tall with glowing gray skin, thorns or spines like a porcupine. They can shapeshift, but their most common form is half troll, half human creature that walks upright.
Oh,
that's the way.
Like the cave friends. I wonder if
the
they're
Kentucky
related.
Goblins.
Yes,
that's exactly. That's amazing you said that, because I was like,
the topic, so I don't want to speak on it too much. But.
Right. Well, I mean, it's. I mean, like honestly, like I don't know the geography that much, but I don't think. I mean, Indiana and Kentucky are pretty darn close.
Well, we share that cave system.
You share the cave system,
Indiana,
so
I claim it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting. I would just say, like, look, keep your ears peeled. If you hear anything about the Indiana Pukwudgies, let me know.
Yes.
I'm fast, and I know it's like it's really emanates from the indigenous people's lore of. I mean, and honestly, it sounds like the Fae. Like it definitely sounds elementally based in a way, but apparently, this area, Mount State Park, is historically known for their. And the only other place that I know that is recognized as a place where you could potentially see Pukwudgies is like the swamps of southern Massachusetts. But I think this is one of the 2 places that has like a kind of reputation for.
Right. I'm not familiar with Anderson's like microgeography and like microclimate. But I know that they're a college town. I think it's Ball State State College. And so, hey, that means if we take a trip, we could probably get good food, which is awesome.
College town, great
so
food.
We do that. But then, if you're thinking of like swampland, I think of wetlands in Indiana, which we have, especially around the Evansville area. Guess what Evansville also has?
What?
The Angel Mounds State Park.
What? See, I stay in Evansville is where I usually I'll drive from Omaha to Evansville, which is about 10 hours, and I'll usually stay there at like some Red Roof Inn on my way to Kentucky. That's usually my first stop.
Oh my gosh. My 30th birthday was last October, and for it, Courtney Block and I and some friends went to the Haunted Willard Library there and a haunted German restaurant in Evansville.
Wow,
so
that's
great.
Special
place to me.
yeah, it is. I love Courtney Block. She's amazing.
Shout out to Courtney Block.
Shout out to Courtney Block. We love you. She's amazing. I love her so much. Let me. Do you have time to maybe talk about like another one, at least one more of your adventures? I don't have
anything to do until 4 p.m.
Okay, good. Well, then I'm gonna bug you with at least one more.
We may have to change position at some point because my phone's on like 20%. I may have to do like
that's
a chargeable.
Fine. Well, that's fine. Unfortunately, I have to go to the dentist in about a half hour. Ugh,
oh no!
God. Yeah, I cracked my tooth. It's a terrible situation.
That is my literal nightmare.
It's like so expensive. I can't even like think about it.
Absolutely,
it's unbelievable. Like
I have nightmares about that all the time.
Just take care of your teeth, folks.
Like
I bet
didn't decided crack and I have a stress fracture now.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's like the pain's kind of gone away, but it's just like
Good. Okay.
I'm more like upset about how much it's going to cost.
Okay.
It's
Well, let me tell
unbelievable.
you, I feel you, and I still have my wisdom teeth,
I do too.
and I'm teething right now. I've had one pop through the gums, and I have another one on the way, and it's under my tooth, and so I'm feeling the urge to go and pay my year salary at this fucking place.
I know.
And I'm just so scared because I've never had a gum shot before. I've always had gas or anesthesia, and I'm just very scared. And so I hope that yours goes well and that they don't completely rob you blind.
Right.
But this is also something I'm like staring down the barrel at, and I'm scared for both of us.
It's just it's all the fun money you put aside. Honestly, like it usually it's like a home disaster, a plumbing thing, or like I crack my tooth. It's like
that's it. My tooth is car shit. Oh yeah, car shit. I'm like,
honestly, where's the like? It's like what happened to fun money? Like, come on.
Right. Well, you know what? When I was in LA in 2015, I somehow had some fun money. I'm in Indiana in 2025, and I don't have fun money.
No, I mean we've been priced out of fun. No, there's no fun to be had.
We're too poor to deserve fun. We need to just work.
Yeah, well, like 98% of the country is just paycheck to paycheck.
God, I have never been angrier with everything. I swear to God.
Oh, we can talk about it off the air. I have my gripes.
And what I will say, I love segues, and this is something that I worked on a lot at the radio show, Bite Drift. Talking about feminine rage, one of my favorite places to go explore and like try to energetically rehabilitate all throughout the state, and like Kentuckiana too. So I would say like all over the Ohio River Valley, into Kentucky, into Indiana, there are so many cemeteries and so many just like rural places that will have like witches' graves.
Ooh.
And that drives me crazy, because what that really means is it was like often a woman who was tormented in the community to the point of even being chased out, or to losing absolutely everything, including maybe even her life at their hands. And so that is something that I've kind of been working on lately, is having like a directory of sorts of all of these like witches areas. And even if they were just like a normal lady, like there's this lady that was in Columbus, the same town as the Crump Theater, and in between Indianapolis and Columbus is about an hour drive, and there's all these small communities who just kept kicking her out, and she had to keep leaving because she was just a little different.
Right.
And she ended up dying. Like she lost her husband over it. She lost so much. And I just think it's really wild that they're like commemorating these spaces as like witch spaces. And so what I'm kind of interpreting as that witch energy is like that feminine rage that like should strike the fear of God into the man.
Yeah.
And so what I've been doing, just like whenever I have a spare moment, and more so when the weather cooperates, is like going around and like leaving a little offering, and maybe even doing just like a little communication, but just trying to figure out a way to like energetically heal that spot, and to just kind of release the rage a little bit, maybe share the rage, hold the rage, then release the rage, right?
I love that.
Yeah. So it's something that I've definitely been influenced by here recently, because I go on like the Shadowlands websites for our states, and I'm reading all of these like really goofy accounts, and all of these really like satanic panic influence accounts from boomers, and a lot of them are like, this old witch was eating children, and she was making my lambs bite each other's heads off. And I'm just like, sweet Lord. And then what if you are a witch on top of that? Like shit, like you're just done. You're done. Yeah. And so I'm just going around those areas, and if there's like a paranormal investigation of some sort, it's like very geared towards like making contact and just making sure that like they're at peace. We can hold that rage together. Let them know like, hey, shit's changed, but shit hasn't changed. Right. We'll just kind of like exist together energetically, and then I'll try to figure out how to release that rage, or at least transmute it into like something good for the community in the area, or like something to help remember them by. And so it's kind of like a fluid idea, and it's something that I've been kind of I have like a Google map about it. It's just all of the sites and just slowly going to them. I don't know if anything will ever come of it. I've barely been photographing them because often it's like a tree stump and I have to like count my footsteps and like reference, you know, local landmarks and find. And so yeah, I don't know if this is ever something that will like be a thing, but just like in my personal journey and in like the journey of like transmuting the feminine rage, I'm trying to like meet up with all these witch graves and these, you know, like murdered women graves and just being like, you know, how can we transmute this and make sure they're honored and not forgotten, and just kind of reminding people that this was done at the hands of like humans and most of the time human men. And just letting that be known, not like we don't mention how she died because it was on our hands. We're so focused and fixated on what her actions were and what happened and her effect on the community. And I'm just like, oh my Lord.
Give me a break.
Yeah, that's just like something energetically I've been doing to kind of release my own feminine rage and to try to like right some of those history wrongs, at least in my hyper local area. Yeah, so that's something I wanted to discuss because that's, I think, something that you see a lot when you're going through like paranormal forums or Liminal Earth Map or the Shadowlands sites, what have you. There's a lot of like witches' graves and witches' landmarks, and I just think it's important to know that that was definitely a human woman. Whether or not she practiced witchcraft, she did not deserve to be treated the way she did. And however to rectify that, for me, it's
well, you're a very take action person. I like that about
you. I am.
That's you need to consider running for mayor of your town. I'm serious. You'd be a good leader.
You know what's so crazy is like recently there was this big hullabaloo about the drag thing, which infuriated me. That they would have any problem with that. And just commended the artists for even trying to come into the area and to help kind of bring the LGBTQ people out in the community out of the cracks a little bit and let them be emboldened a little bit. If your like fucked up views are gonna be emboldened, like my rainbow shit is gonna be emboldened. Like let's go.
Yeah. There you go. I love it.
But then at the same time, just all of this pushback recently from like these changes in our zoning laws and it potentially affecting like home businesses and it was all and like pretty much a mistake in the document. It didn't end up actually being that these elected officials 50% Democratic, 50% Republican, it's not like one party's fault or our plan, but they we're trying to change the zoning, arguably for like people who are doing homesteading who are like overcrowding animal pens and for people who are going to have pedestrian foot traffic and like aren't letting their insurance know. And like, so the zoning is trying to like step in and take care of that. And some of it I agreed with, some of it I didn't. People were like threatening the lives of these public officials over thinking they're going to lose their home business.
Good Lord.
And listen, I'm starting a business in my home. Like I am affected by what they suspect this document means. And like, I will give them, you know, points for acknowledging that this document is extremely cryptic and hard to read. But like, have you ever read any sort of like legal document? That's how that goes. And maybe designed that way. But just seeing what happens recently, if you are at all against the grain, I'm very scared to do anything like public like that. I would love to. I think that there's a lot more people, especially than there used to be, who have like more balanced ideologies and who just care about basic human rights and are very infuriated. But I think that there are so many people who are so indoctrinated in all of this bullshit that's becoming a thing more so. It was always kind of an underground belief, but people becoming vindicated by recent events and are being more emboldened to speak up and things. It's very, very common in my area, and I am definitely not the majority with that. And so facing that would take a lot. But well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how many of my early like podcast appearances would allow for me to be elected. Some of the wild shit I talk about.
I am unelectable at this point. Let me tell you.
You're like, oh, which?
I had some friends that were joking when I first moved back, like, dude, you should run for city council, man. Like, you know, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I worked on a show called Drunk History for 7 years where I was intoxicated. So I'm not sure I'm really politician material.
That's amazing. You know? I forgot about that because I know that there's a Bob Burgers moment and there's, you know, the Good Place moment. And I just love that. And that makes me so happy. Because there's been so many moments just consuming my favorite media that I've been like, is that my friend Steve? Is that my internet friend Steve?
Well, I think, sadly, I think sometimes that can help you in a political career, and sometimes it can hurt you. And I think I might be a little weird for Nebraska politics. I don't think they'd want any part of me, even in Omaha. Right. But that's okay.
I'm the same. They think that I'm. I remember what it was like to be a Christian growing up and like how I viewed witchcraft, and it was like the worst of the worst. And so that being the majority here, I really doubt that would be allowed. And even just me with this garden business, not wanting to have too witchy of a name, or like if I wanted to do like a medicinal pot of herbs, like do I lean into the witchiness or do I just say, you know, medicinal herbs like for your homestead? Like that's like more politically aimed than like, oh, you know, like for your practice, for your ritual, for your cleansing, which is what I want to say, and I think I'm what I'm going to do anyways. But there's just, especially as like a single young woman, there's a lot of danger in being that bold and that authentic and outspoken. And it's something that I used to be able to do in Seattle. Like I used to be fully open and like be able to just be super weird. Not run into the same person twice, have these amazing conversations. And now it's like my hair was pink for 2 weeks and I heard about that from the most random people I don't know. And like if I wear my rainbow earrings in June, it's like the end of the world. And I'm like, okay, this is too much. So while we do discuss all of the weirdness and all of the perks to coming to Indiana, folks also need to know that this still isn't like a super safe space. Like I get by with my privilege, like there's so many people who I want to like protect in this community and I want to like defend, and they are just like trying to like get by with like basic shit. Like there's so many people just trying to take away like their humanity.
Yeah, it's awful. Like, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and so all that to say, Indiana, it's got some issues still, and
you know, every place does, though. I will say that it's like, you know, I mean, I think cities are safe for the most part with a lot of these kind of like small town problems. But if you think about like, I mean, like everyone's like, oh, California, what a bastion of like, you know, progressivism. It's like, well, LA and San Francisco are certainly. The rest of California is a massive state, the size of a country.
Yes.
And the majority of it is red.
It's go to the desert really town at night. Dude, good luck with that.
Yeah, it's as scary as any place. And like, I mean, even Orange County. I mean, Orange County is like a giant city. That place is like, I mean, it's not for me. I'll just say that. And so while people like, you know, I mean, it's also where like the modern neo-Nazi movement started is in Southern California.
In Oregon as well.
In Oregon as well. So
the same way you think Portland and then you're getting gas in Western Oregon or Eastern Oregon and you're like, where the fuck am I right now?
That's exactly right. And while it's beautiful and very interesting, like, but like, there's just, you know, there's problems everywhere. There's danger everywhere, and the danger is always human. I swear to God.
It is. It truly is. It's very rarely paranormal.
Yeah, it is. Bex, I have taken you for almost 2 hours, and I'll tell you what. I would invite you back, please, because I didn't even scratch the surface of things I want to talk about. But look, no, the conversation goes where it wants to go. But I mean, like, I keep all the questions because I would love I'd be so honored if you come back and we can. Yes. I mean,
we can discuss Maury Island.
Oh my God, look at that! That's beautiful. Well, I'll tell you what.
I took that on a plane.
That is gorgeous, and I'm a massive Maury Island fan.
Me and Jim I'll send you the Estes method from the last time Jim and I went there. It is not public.
Oh yeah, please do, please do.
We spent a whole day there with Garrett. It was awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, Jim's a legend. I just love that guy. He's so sweet and he's so smart. He's a great dude.
We got a lot of good people.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, look, I like good people.
Yes.
You know, I mean, and you are first of all, I just want to genuinely compliment you on your artistic gift. I mean, like, I'm so happy you're putting this out in the world, because like your photography makes me very happy, and I'm a deep appreciator of the arts. And when you can combine art and high strangeness, oh sister, you got me for life. So you are you're so talented. Will you please tell the listeners where they can find more Bex?
Yeah, sorry. We're just stepping on my contact sheets. Do you want to say hi, honey?
Hi, come say hi.
Oh
Say
my
hi.
God, he's like, do I have to jump off your bed? Hi, buddy.
Oh,
Okay, come here, buddy. Yeah, you're sneezing. Come here.
what's
Okay.
your name, buddy?
I'm trying to not show my mess.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
show him.
Oh my!
Hi,
Is that a
baby.
yellow lab?
Yeah. So he, I found him at a random Amish farm in Tennessee.
Perfect. What
I
a good
adopted
boy.
him, and he has been to Seattle and back with me. We went hunting for Bigfoot. We went hunting for UFOs. He does all the things, and we go to Henderson Park.
Oh, what a good boy.
Swim in the creek. Yeah. He's like,
Oh,
you haven't touched me in almost 2 hours.
I'm dying for affection.
My
I'll
baby.
bring you a biscuit when I meet you, buddy.
Oh, he got ghosties on his collar.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, we'll take him. He loves doing the outdoor paranormal. He's just grown.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah,
He
yes I
sings and
do.
stuff too, but that'll break everyone's ears with headphones. We sing together. Yeah, we'll send Steve a bunch of videos. Yeah,
Yeah, we love videos, buddy.
Yeah, he probably needs to GOOT.
Yeah,
He knows how to
yeah.
spell now, apparently.
Oh yeah, look, you're so brilliant. You're so smart. Oh, you're a handsome lad. Aw.
Oh, thank you.
How cute. Oh
Wow.
my goodness. Wow, that's a lot of
That's my
affection.
cuddle buddy.
Yeah,
He's gonna be 6 years old in May.
Oh, what a little legend. I love it.
He's the UFO sniffing dog.
Oh, every household needs one. I've been saying that for years.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Leave it to a lab.
Yeah. Well, please tell the listeners where they can find more of your work, please.
Yeah, so 2 main spaces for me right now. Bex in the Liminal on Instagram. Not the most active, but that's where the photos are coming.
Yeah, highly recommend.
That's my primary gallery, if you will. And then I do have a Patreon as well. I love traveling, and I blow a ton of money on film stock, and so just having people supporting that has been really great. And so Patreon, Bex in the Liminal as well. I do have it to where you can be a free member and see some stuff. I post like the color versions of my photos for free members, and then of course the paid members get all of my really long articles I spend weeks and months on, behind the scenes, photos and videos, and then sorry buddy, and then prints in the mail if you want prints.
Awesome. And folks, you are going to find those sweet links in the show notes, of course. Bex, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you. Wonderful stories. And we're just going to go ahead and call this part 1, because I have to have you back. In fact, when I come visit you, maybe we'll record one live on scene in Henderson Park. Live from Henderson Park, people.
I would love that.
That'd be awesome.
We'll see if the signal lets us.
Yeah, well, I'm buying a little Tascam field recorder, because I want to start doing like little short little dispatches from my adventures.
Yes. Do you see my creepy mirror?
Ooh, yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely.
They say you don't have mirrors in your bedroom, but
yeah,
I don't really have anywhere else to put it right now.
Yeah, it's good. You got to scry every once in a while.
I had to leave my big black mirror back in Washington, so this will be a future black mirror.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Oh, Bex, this has been so much fun. I can't wait to have you back on. Please, my friend, have the greatest dinner tonight.
Oh, thank you. I will definitely send you some pics. We're gonna do a version of what I discussed, but in a different form, and it's definitely Mexican influence. I've been eating Mexican food for 3 weeks straight, and every time I cook, so
it doesn't get old.
Never.
Mexican food is always the right answer. And
I went to the Mexican grocery. I didn't know that there was one like 30 miles from me, so I went, and that was my week groceries done. Like, let me tell you, to go to the other store.
I was telling the listeners on an episode 1 or 2 episodes ago, like, buy Mexican spices. First off, they're about 85% cheaper. They're better, and you get more of it. You can any Mexican grocer will have it, and a lot of grocery stores have them in general. Mexican spices are where it's at, my friends.
Yep.
I'm telling you.
Especially if you're witchy.
Yeah.
You get cheap ass cinnamon sticks.
Absolutely. You do though. And I
Yummies.
swear to God, like I'm a spice nerd, and the spices are just better. They're way fresher, I swear.
Truly. Yeah, especially the dried peppers. You need them for almost any Mexican
Oh,
recipe. So if
the
you're not gonna go
arboules.
jarred, yeah.
Yeah, I have like a giant bag of the arbol peppers, and they cost
Yeah.
me like
Oh, I go a little spicy.
like a little kick, sister. I'm not gonna lie,
Too.
but they were like $2.50, and I'll be using
Yeah.
them for 3 years, so it's beautiful.
Yeah. Bless them
Beautiful.
for selling by weight because those
Yeah,
peppers weigh nothing.
exactly. It's amazing.
Yep. Alrighty.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Hi Strangers. Enjoy your dinners tonight. Bex, tell the listeners bye if you would.
Bye.
Bye. Oh wait. I hit the wrong thing.